The room was dark and cold. Metal bars surrounded him from all sides. The boy opened his eyes slowly, confused and afraid. His head was hurting, and his body felt weak. He didn't know where he was, or how he got there. He looked around and saw cages. Many cages. Inside each cage was a strange creature. Some were tall and thin, with glowing eyes. Others had thick skin and sharp claws. They looked dangerous, like warriors from another world. But none of them were fighting now. They were all watching him silently. The boy tried to speak, but his voice came out dry and cracked. "Where am I?" he whispered. No one answered. He touched the metal bars. They were cold and hard. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed through the room. A gate opened on the far side, and two creatures were pulled out of their cages by invisible force fields. They were thrown into a large pit in the center. A light turned on above them. The boy watched as the two aliens began to fight. Their movements were fast and brutal. Fists, claws, roars, and pain. One creature fell. The other roared in victory. Then both were dragged back to their cages, bleeding and tired. The light turned off, and silence returned. The boy's heart was racing. This wasn't just a prison. It was a place for battle. He sat down in his cage, trying to remember something. Anything. His name, his home, his family. It was all missing. He was just a boy with no name, locked in a place full of monsters. Days passed, or maybe weeks. He had no idea how time worked here. Each day, two more aliens fought and returned, but none of them spoke to him. None of them attacked him. They all stared at him like he was something different, something important. One day, something strange happened. No fight began, no gate opened. Instead, one of the strongest creatures, a tall, armored beast with silver skin, stood up and walked to the edge of his cage. He looked at the boy, then slowly bowed his head. The boy blinked, confused. The other creatures followed. One by one, they bowed too. Even the wildest and fiercest warriors lowered their heads in silence. The boy stood up slowly, unsure what to do. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the bars. They shimmered for a moment, and then disappeared. His cage was now open. The others looked at him, waiting. He walked out carefully, his legs shaking. He expected someone to stop him, some guard or machine. But nothing happened. He turned to the others, and without thinking, touched the nearest cage. It opened too. The silver-skinned alien stepped out. Tall and proud, he looked at the boy and spoke in a deep, broken voice. "You are the key." The boy stared at him, shocked. "What key?" "Why me?" The alien just nodded. "You set us free." More cages opened. More aliens walked out. Some were confused, some were angry. And then, they started fighting. But not to escape, not to hurt him. They were fighting for him. Two female aliens pushed others aside, walking straight to him. They stood close, growling at each other. One tried to take his hand, the other pulled her away. The boy backed off, scared. "I didn't ask for this," he said. But they didn't listen. They were warriors, and now they were free. But freedom came with a price. They needed a leader, a purpose, a connection. And they saw all that in him. Far above, in the ceiling, a red light blinked. A voice whispered through the walls. Unseen and cold, "The test has begun." The boy didn't hear it, but something inside him changed. He looked at the creatures again, and for the first time, they didn't seem like monsters. They looked like followers waiting for his command. But he still didn't know who he was, or why he was here. He only knew one thing. This was not the end. It was just the beginning. Asterisk. The ground shook beneath his feet. The boy turned around. And behind him, two alien warriors were already locked in a brutal fight. Not for freedom, not to escape, but to prove something, something about him. The air was heavy with growls and tension. He could feel their eyes on him. Even as fists and claws flew through the air, he didn't know what to do. He didn't ask for this, yet now he was in the center of something he couldn't understand. He raised his hand, hoping they would stop. They didn't. Suddenly, A loud sound echoed from above, like metal grinding against metal. The floor below the fighters split apart, and a glowing wall of energy pushed them away from each other. The room went silent again. A voice came from the wall itself, flat and cold. Subject 9 has initiated unplanned interaction. Observation protocol is now active. The boy stepped back, scared and confused. Subject 9, he whispered. Is that me? Before he could think more, the silver-skinned alien approached again. He bowed slightly, then looked him in the eyes. You stopped the fight, the alien said. No, the boy replied. The wall did that. You made it happen. Alien insisted. The other creatures were watching again, like statues made of muscle and fire. Why are you doing this? The boy asked. I don't even know who I am. You are the key, the silver alien said again. But key to what? The creature turned and pointed toward a dark hallway that had just appeared beyond the walls. It wasn't there before. The walls had shifted, revealing a narrow tunnel of black stone and red light. You choose now, the alien said. Free only one. What? The boy asked. Only one? The alien nodded slowly. You open one cage, one warrior walks beside you. The rest stay trapped. The boy looked around, his heart racing. All the other aliens had returned to their cages. The bars were back, glowing red and humming with energy. They looked at him, not with anger, not with fear, but with hope. He felt his hands tremble. This was the first real choice he had been given. One choice, one warrior. He didn't know any of them, yet somehow he could feel something, an invisible bond, weak but present, like he had known them before, in another life, or maybe a dream. The silver alien stepped back into his cage without a word. Everyone was waiting. He walked forward, step by step, eyes scanning the faces. A tall female with green eyes met his gaze, her expression calm and silent. Next to her, a smaller one with golden skin stared with wide eyes, almost like she was afraid. Farther down, a massive beast with fire-red armor gave a slight nod of respect. The boy stopped, unsure. Why him? Why now? He looked at his hand, the one that opened the cage before. Would it work again? He reached toward the green-eyed warrior's cage, then paused. Something pulled him toward the golden-skinned one instead. Her eyes held a story, a silent scream. He stepped to her cage, pressed his hand on the bars. They vanished. She stepped out slowly, as if she couldn't believe it. Then, without warning, she fell to one knee. I follow, she said, her voice soft and shaky. He helped her stand, and for a moment, everything felt quiet, but not for long. The rest of the aliens began to growl, softly at first, then louder. Some looked angry, others broken. He had chosen, and in doing so, he had rejected them. The wall spoke again. First bond complete. Proceed to level 2. The hallway behind them lit up, brighter now. The golden-skinned girl stood beside him, silent and alert. He looked back at the others one last time, then turned and walked into the tunnel. Each step felt heavier than the last. As the shadows swallowed them, he whispered to himself, I hope I chose right. But somewhere far away, behind a hidden glass wall, a pair of human eyes watched closely, and a voice said, Let's see how far this one goes. The walls were breathing, not like a machine, but like something alive. The boy walked through the dark tunnel, the golden-skinned alien by his side. The floor beneath them was soft, like flesh covered in metal. The lights above flickered, not because they were broken, but because they were watching. He could feel it now. The ship wasn't just a place. It was alive, or something close to it. The golden alien girl kept glancing behind them, her hand never far from the sharp bone blade on her hip. She hadn't said a word since he freed her. She didn't need to. The boy's mind was filled with noise, not from her, but from the ship itself. It whispered things he didn't understand. In a voice that sounded too much like his own, You are waking up. You are becoming. You are not who you think you are. The boy shook his head and kept walking. The hallway led them into a large chamber filled with floating screens, glowing symbols, and strange pulsing lights. At the center was a tall black pillar. Humming softly, the girl pointed at it, her voice low. This is the core. The ship listens from here. He stepped closer, the whispers in his head growing louder. One of the floating screens changed when he moved. Now it showed him, his face, his body, his heartbeat. Everything was there. Another screen showed something worse. Earth, not the one he remembered. This Earth was surrounded by machines, orbiting in silence like eyes in the sky. Another screen showed cages, hundreds of them, filled with creatures like the ones he had left behind. And in the middle of them all, one cage still open. His cage. I don't understand. The boy said, "What is this place?" The golden girl looked at him carefully. "This is not a prison," she said. "This is a test lab." His heart dropped. "A test? For what?" "You," she said, pointing at his chest. "You are not just the key. You are the lock." The room shook suddenly, red lights flashing across the walls. A deep voice echoed from nowhere. "Unauthorized access. Subject 9 has breached core chamber. Activating defense protocol." From the ceiling, long black arms with glowing tips dropped down. The girl pulled her blade, standing in front of him. "Run," she said. "I'm not leaving you," he replied. "Run," she shouted again. Slashing the nearest arm, more arms dropped, more lights flashed. The boy grabbed a metal rod from the floor and swung it wildly. It didn't matter. There were too many. Suddenly, the pillar in the center pulsed and stopped. Everything froze. Even the arms in the air stopped moving. The lights dimmed. The screens went black and the voice in his head returned. "You are waking up." The boy stepped forward, touched the pillar. His hand sank into it. As if the metal was water, he felt heat, light, and something like a memory, a broken memory. He was sitting in a white room, wearing a white suit. Scientists around him were clapping, cheering. "Congratulations, Subject 9, one of them said. "You are the first successful hybrid." Then pain, a needle, a scream, darkness. He pulled his hand back, breathing fast. "What did you see?" The girl asked, "I think I was made," he whispered. "Not born," before she could answer. The screens lit up again. This time, they showed doors opening all over the ship. The cages were unlocking. The aliens were being freed, all of them. One by one, they stepped out, and many began running through the halls. "Did you do this?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. "But we have to move." They ran through the far door, into another tunnel, but this time it looked different. The walls were cleaner, more human. A sign appeared above, written in English Level 4, Human. Arias aged the girl, stopped confused by the language. He stared at the words, frozen. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I think," he said slowly, "this ship wasn't made by aliens. It was made by us." The boy opened the door, expecting silence. Instead, he walked into a storm. 2 alien females stood in the center of the room, facing each other like wolves ready to strike. One was his golden-skinned companion. The other was tall, sharp-eyed, with silver markings glowing across her neck. The moment they saw him, the growling began. They were not fighting for space, or food, or freedom. They were fighting for him. He stepped back, confused. "What's going on?" he asked. Neither answered. The silver-marked one walked toward him with calm steps, her eyes never leaving his face. "You chose her," she said, her voice deep and smooth. "But she is weak." The golden girl stepped forward, her blade drawn, but lowered. "I was chosen first," she said quietly. "He trusts me." Trust, the word echoed in his mind. He barely trusted himself. "Wait," he said, raising his hands. "You don't need to fight over me." But they didn't hear him, or maybe they didn't care. This was more than jealousy. This was something older, something wired into their blood. They were born to serve a leader, bond with a mate, protect what they claimed. And now both had claimed him. Suddenly, The silver warrior stepped forward and pressed her fingers against his chest. A glowing mark appeared under her touch, a soft blue light. The golden girl growled. Eyes burning, she lunged forward, knocking the silver one to the ground. They rolled across the floor, teeth bared, fists flying. "Stop!" the boy shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the sound of war cries and impact. The door behind him slammed shut, locking them in. He turned toward the walls. They were pulsing again, watching again, and then the whisper returned. They must bond. Only one may lead beside the key. "No," he said to the voice. "I'm not some prize." But deep down, he felt something pull inside him. A strange warmth in his chest, a burning in his spine. He felt connected to both of them, in different ways. The silver one was strong, fast, ruthless, a perfect warrior. The golden one was calm, loyal, and had protected him more than once. The fight wasn't just physical now, it was emotional, spiritual. Something ancient was waking inside them. And inside him, the silver alien pinned the golden one to the ground, ready to strike, but the boy stepped between them. His arms out. "Enough," he said, his voice louder than before. "Stop fighting." They froze, shocked. The silver one slowly stood, her eyes still glowing. The golden girl sat up, breathing hard. He looked at both of them, eyes sharp but kind. "I don't belong to anyone," he said, "but I won't leave either of you behind." The walls flickered again, but this time something changed. A large doorway opened across the room, revealing a massive hall. It was full of weapons, glowing orbs, and suits of armor, and on the far side, a mirror, not just glass, it was alive. Reflected something not standing in front of it, a version of him, taller, glowing, with strange symbols across his skin. "Is that me?" he whispered. The girl stood behind him now, quiet, watching the reflection too. "It is your final form," the voice whispered. "You are becoming." The boy stepped forward slowly, drawn to the mirror. And as he got closer, he saw something else. Behind the reflection, far in the background, stood a figure in a white coat. A human, watching him, smiling. The boy's blood went cold. He had seen that face before, in the broken memory. The scientist, the man who had called him Subject 9. He turned around quickly, but there was no one there, only the mirror and the two warriors beside him. The girl with golden skin touched his hand gently. "You are more than human," she said. The silver one placed a hand on his shoulder. "But not yet a god." They both looked at him, waiting for what came next, and for the first time, he didn't feel like a prisoner or a test subject. He felt like someone who could choose his own path. He stepped toward the glowing suits of armor and picked up a small silver disc. It lit up in his palm, reacting to his touch. Suddenly, a new door opened, leading to a dark tunnel with red lights. The voice returned, louder this time. "Level 5, the hidden enemy." The door closed behind him with a heavy, final thud. The tunnel ahead was colder than the others, not just in temperature, but in feeling, like the walls themselves were afraid of what came next. He could hear it. Not footsteps, not voices, but a low, mechanical heartbeat. And it was beating in time with his own. The golden-skinned girl walked beside him, silent but alert. The silver warrior followed closely, her eyes scanning every corner. None of them spoke. They all felt it. Something had changed. This level wasn't just a test, it was a trap. They entered a room filled with black glass panels. Each one showed a different scene. Battles, explosions, planets torn apart. But then the panels began to shift. Now they showed him in a hospital bed, in a lab floating, in a tank surrounded by humans. The boy stepped forward, eyes wide. "This is me." He saw his own body, younger, smaller, hooked up to wires, asleep. Scientists stood around him, taking notes, smiling. And in the center of them all, the man in the white coat, the one from the mirror, Dr. Callan. The boy remembered that name now. He whispered it like a curse. "Callan." The panels began to speak, playing old recordings. "Subject 9's compatibility is beyond all previous failures. Alien DNA is merging faster than expected. Once full control is achieved, humanity will have its ultimate weapon. The golden girl stepped back, eyes full of shock. You were, she said. The boy nodded slowly. I wasn't kidnapped, he said. I was built. The silver warrior looked at him, but her eyes had changed. She wasn't just looking at a leader now. She was looking at a threat. Suddenly, lights flashed, and the door ahead opened. A man stood there, real and alive, not a recording. Dr. Callan, older now, but still with the same cold smile. Welcome back, 9, he said calmly. It's been a long time. The boy froze. The room pulsed around him, the walls waiting. How are you here? The boy asked. This place, this ship. It's not alien, is it? Callan chuckled softly. No, not alien, he said. It's Earth's project. Years ago, we found ruins under Mars. Technology far beyond us. So we made something from it. A lab, a ship, a weapon. You, the boys. Hands curled into fists. I'm not your weapon. You don't get to control me. Callan raised one hand, and the floor lit up with a new cage rising from below. Inside it was another human. A girl, about the same age as him, unconscious, floating in a soft blue light. Her name is Subject 10, Callan said. She's not finished yet, but I knew showing her to you would wake you up faster. The boy stepped closer, anger building in his chest. I will tear this place apart, he said. You already are, Callan replied with a grin. Every choice you made triggered new systems. You've unlocked parts of the ship we couldn't control. You're rewriting it, piece by piece. You think you're free, 9. But freedom was always part of the design. Before the boy could move, alarms blared. A blast came from behind. Someone had broken through the sealed doors. Dozens of the freed aliens from the lower levels rushed in. Roaring, armed, furious, some ran to protect him. Others stopped when they saw Callan. Chaos began again. The cage holding Subject 10 shook, and the girl inside opened her eyes, bright gold, like fire. She looked at the boy, and for a brief moment, she smiled. Then the power in the room cut everything. Went dark. The only thing left glowing was the symbol on the boy's chest, the one that appeared when the silver warrior touched him. He could feel something rising in him now, not anger, not fear, power. He looked around at the broken lab, at the girl in the cage, at the doctor trying to escape, and he whispered, I am not Subject 9 anymore. I am something else. The floor was shaking, but it wasn't from an explosion, it was from him. The boy stood in the middle of the broken lab, eyes glowing like twin stars. Aliens stood around him. Warriors from different worlds, some kneeled, others stood frozen in fear. Not because of what he had done, but because of what he was becoming. The golden girl stepped forward, her hand outstretched. Please, she whispered. You have to stop. The silver warrior stood beside her, watching him like a lion watches the fire. Dr. Callan had escaped, but his words still echoed in the boy's mind. You were designed to lead, to control, to dominate. The boy clenched his fists, fighting against the storm rising inside him. Power pulsed through his veins, hot and electric. He could feel everything. Now every signal in the ship, every heartbeat in the room. The ship wasn't just listening to him anymore, it was obeying him. The girl in the cage, Subject 10, was now awake, standing behind the cracked glass. She looked at him with fire in her eyes, and something else, longing. The golden girl saw it, so did the silver one. The tension snapped like a cable pulled too tight. Suddenly, the two warriors turned toward each other again. But this time, the growls were softer, the anger mixed with fear, because now, they weren't just fighting for love or power, they were fighting for place. Their place beside something greater than human. The boy raised his voice, loud and clear. Stop, they did. He stepped between them, glowing with quiet fury. I am not your leader, he said. I am not your god. And I am not your mate. The room fell silent. Even the ship held its breath. The golden girl lowered her eyes, her voice soft. But we were made to follow. The silver one looked at him, firm but respectful. "And we chose you." He shook his head, his voice cracking. "You didn't choose me," he said. "You were programmed to want me." This bond, this connection, it was part of their experiment. He turned toward the cage holding Subject 10. "She's proof of that," he said. They were building another one, another bond, another girl, another control system. He stepped toward the cage, and the glass slid open without a sound. Subject 10 stepped out slowly, barefoot and calm. She looked around like someone waking from a dream. Then she looked at him, eyes filled with fire and curiosity. "You're different than they said," she whispered. "I'm different now," he replied. She smiled, then looked at the others. "They still think you belong to them." The golden girl stepped forward, shaking her head. "No," she said. "We serve, not own." The silver warrior nodded. "But the bond is real." Subject 10 tilted her head, her voice quiet but sharp. "Is it real if it was designed?" That question hung in the air like smoke. The boy closed his eyes, breathing deeply. He felt everything again. The power, the memories, the confusion, and then something broke free. A final wall in his mind crumbled. He remembered everything. The lab, the training, the pain, the lies, but also the dreams, the moments of quiet. The first time someone called him human. He opened his eyes, calm now, and said, "I may be created, but I choose who I am, and I choose to be free." He turned to the others, his voice steady. "No more fighting," he said. "No more cages. If you follow me, it's your choice, not your design." They bowed, not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. Subject 10 smiled, for real this time. "You're ready," she said. He looked at her, surprised. "For what?" "For the final door," she said, pointing behind him. He turned and saw a massive gate glowing with white light. The ship spoke once more. "Final level, Earth re-entry. Warning. Human forces approaching. They do not come in peace." Earth was no longer blue. From space, it looked cold, scarred, and surrounded by machines. Warships floated in orbit, armed and silent, watching the sky like sleeping giants. Inside the alien ship, the boy stood at the main window, staring down. At the world he once called home, it didn't feel like home anymore. Not after everything he had seen, everything he had become. Behind him stood the golden-skinned girl, quiet and loyal. The silver warrior watched the screens, ready to fight, and Subject 10, the girl made just like him, stood beside him, not as a weapon, but as a mirror. The ship's voice echoed through the chamber. Calm but tense. "Incoming message from Earth." "Play it," the boy said. A screen opened, showing a human general in a steel-gray uniform. His face was pale, cold, and unreadable. "Subject 9, he said. "You are ordered to surrender and return control of the alien vessel. Failure to comply will result in elimination." The boy stared at the screen, silent. He had no number now. No code, no title, only a name, and it was time to say it. "My name is Kalen," he said, voice clear and strong. "I am not your weapon. I am not your project. I am human, and more." The general didn't blink. "Then you are." "Threat," he said, and the screen cut off. Sirens began to scream. Missiles were launched, dozens of them, heading straight for the ship. The aliens inside growled, stepping forward to prepare for war. But Kalen raised his hand. "No," he said. "We won't fight them. They're afraid. They see something they can't control. They don't want to destroy me," he said, turning to the others. "They want to destroy the idea of me." Subject 10 stepped closer, her voice calm. "Then we give them a new idea," she said. Kalen nodded slowly. He walked to the ship's center core and placed his hand on the control pillar. It lit up like fire, reacting instantly. The walls of the ship shifted, transforming into something new. Not a weapon, but a message. The ship opened like a blooming flower in orbit, releasing light into space. A symbol appeared across its surface. Not alien, not military, but human. Hand reaching out, Open, not closed. The missiles came closer. And then, stopped, frozen in place, caught by the ship's gravity field. Kalen spoke through the system, to Earth, to everyone listening. To those watching, he said, I was created by your fear, but I choose not to fear you. I was trained for war, but I choose peace. You made me in a cage, but I stepped out on my own. The golden girl stood behind him, proud. The silver warrior bowed her head, respectful subject. 10 smiled, quietly stepping beside him, and far below, on Earth, people listened. Soldiers lowered their weapons, scientists watched in silence, and one man, Dr. Callan, stood alone in a dark room, watching the boy he once called Subject 9, and realizing he had created something he could never control. Back on the ship, Kalen turned to the crew of aliens who now followed him. You don't have to fight for me, he said. You don't have to follow me. You are free. Some stepped back, unsure. Some stayed loyal, and that was enough. The ship began to move, slowly pulling away from Earth's orbit. But it didn't run. It left a signal behind, a path, a frequency, an open door. Kalen watched the planet grow smaller. And for the first time, he smiled. He had made his final choice, not to be a leader or a god, but to be himself.